video and all the presentations, we can. But that means that everybody should agree.
Okay.
Do we all agree? Because if somebody doesn't agree to be part of the recording, I would suggest not to record and only have presentations and the video. Nobody disagrees? Okay, then we continue. Thanks. Paul.
Okay. So. Okay. Okay, then I start. Just a second.
I give you 10 minutes, huh?
I need just 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello. My name is Paul Schwab, and I work for the publishing house of the Austrian Trade Union. First of all, I would like to thank Eurofund and Wage Indicator for the opportunity to present the Austrian collective agreement or database of the collective agreements. And yeah, I will try in the next 5 minutes to bring you closer to at least some aspects of our database. So some general informations. The ÖGB publishing house started building the collective agreement database in 1995. It was driven by the trade unions since they needed a central point for all collective agreements to make them available for their members. Our main objective then became, and still is, to ensure a database for the representatives of the employees to facilitate the legal advice on labor law issues. And this is a paid service, but in 2015, we also opened parts of the database for the public. And we have around 600 collective contracts in the database, but the database consists of roughly 27,000 documents, and around 800 documents are added every year to it. Okay, all our collective agreements are in XML. We choose this format primarily to have the possibility to reuse the content. We not only maintain a database, but also create documents for print. In this screenshot, you find the metadata, which is currently in use in our database. The highlighted blue part is only for internal purpose, so you can ignore it. On top, you have the start and the end date of the collective agreement. That's for the whole document. We also have most of the metadata also on every paragraph, so we can change it if the validity is different or so something. Okay, well, so the next part is the distinction between blue collar workers and white collar workers. Then we have the information about the union which negotiated the collective agreement, and also a unique name and a unique ID for every collective agreement. And in the bottom, there are some more metadata, for example, for the region where it's applicable. And also we have some old version of a classification system, an Austrian NACE code if you want, but it's not, yeah, it's not up to date. So yeah, and I also want to show you a project we started some time ago because it could be interesting for this project as well. In cooperation with a personal service provider, we started to annotate only the wage data in collective agreements with the goal that it can be read out automatically. Currently, we have successfully annotated 120 collective agreements, and these are also already transmitted to our customers via an interface where they automatically integrated into their software. So just to show you, on the right, you see on the right top, you see the XML version of a wage table, and the left bottom, you see the source code of it and all the annotation behind it. And we're talking about this wage. And from the table, we see that it's in the wage group A. And after 2 years, in this position, you get it. So in the source code, we started to say, okay, it's a monthly based wage, because somewhere else in the collective agreement it's is defined. Then also that it's part of the wage group A, and from 2 years to up to 4 years. And the outcome, what the customer gets, is through an API. It only gets the information about this wage. Okay, this wage is monthly from year 2 to year 4 in the wage group A in this case. And also on another position in the XML, we also annotate the wage group. So with a description, so the customer can match that both together. And that's only one part. We also, for this project, since we were working with an expert, they told us and what we had to annotate so they can do their calculations, and we annotate the working hour, also the factor to calculate monthly or daily wages, then the allowances, the supplements, the 13th and 14th wage, the holiday pay, the travel expense, and so on. Yeah. That's this part. And about the future improvements, yeah, we want to extend the annotated collective agreement so that we cover all of them. Then also some new metadata for statistical analysis, because we sometimes gets from the union some special some special of whatever. Yeah. So yearly percentage increase, for example, to compare it over the years. And if we annotate all the collective agreements, there's also the possibility to compare the minimum wages and so on. Also, we like to add a classification system, probably in ACE code, but yeah. And then also some improvements in the content, but that's something else. Okay. So, and that was it. So.
Thanks, Paul. Is there any question now of which you say, well, it's better to ask now than a bit later? Then please feel free.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I have one question, if I may, Paul.
Yeah.
Thanks. Really, thanks a lot for the presentation. Really great to see how advanced the system has gone as well. And I have a question about the wage calculations, because you said that you also share the percentage increase on the annual level. Yeah. Now, do you get that from the calculations, or do you get that from a clause in the agreement that says that the wages are increasing by, say, 3%?
No, this information is normally when the union negotiated, the first thing they say is, okay, it will rise by 3% or something like that. Okay. So, and that's where we get it from. But if we have all I mean, you could also get it from the numbers of the wages, how much they rise. So, yeah, but we get it from I don't know, the ending of the negotiation system or process. They tell us how much they will rise.
Thanks.
Nice question. Are there more questions now? Because sometimes it's easier to have them now than later, because they relate very much to this presentation. More questions? If not, then we move on.
May I ask something?
Yeah, sure.
Albert van Uffel here of Belgium. How much do they change the amounts of wages during what time do they change? So they are on screen for a period. How many years? 1, 2, 3 years? That I would like to know. How long it remains the same figure, or does it change by indexation or by and higher level before the end of the agreement?
Paul.
Yeah, in Austria, normally or in general, every year they negotiate it again. And then it depends how much it raises. I mean, it should be at least the inflation, but if the union is strong, it's a little bit more, but it changes every year, at least once a year.
And how many agreements can be seen on the screen? 20, I understood 20 or?
No, in our database we have 600. So
600, and all 600 agreements are on the screen.
Yeah.
With the wages.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a good job. Good job.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I told you they're good. Paul is good. It's are there more questions? Because it's nice to learn from how they have been doing it and then to decide whether that's the best way to do or maybe different. More questions? No? No. Okay, then thanks a million, Austria. It's also Austria is the first because it starts with an A. Now we have Bulgaria with a presentation, and can you share your screen or you want us to do the presentation? Let us know.
Hello, everyone. I'd like if you can share the presentation among the participants, it will be better. Okay,
perfect. That's Niels is doing that now, and then you talk Niels through your presentation by saying next slide, please, etc. Huh? Vladimir.
Okay.
No problem, huh? So feel free, take the floor. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vladimir Boyodjev. I'm director of the National Institute for Conciliation and Arbitration, which is a tripartite institution, and all the activities are under decision by our supervisory board, which bring together the employers and trade unions representative as two members from the Ministry of Labor and Social Policy. NICA's database on collective labor agreements equal to the collective bargaining agreements is under our labor code amended from December 2008 with special provision that the copies of CBA we receive from General Labor Inspectorate. That means we are secondary register of collective bargaining agreements. And by common decision by the Ministry and the social partners, we develop an information system and resource to help the social partners on the matter of collective bargaining, according to the ILO convention, which is not ratified by Bulgaria. Please, next slide. So, the process. We receive from General Labor Inspectorate on hard copy papers or files, Word or PDF, or directly we can download from General Labor Inspectorate internal register all collective bargaining agreements. And after that, we put the information from CBA in our information system using Access, which is package of Microsoft system. Separate in two chapters or parts. The first one is so-called functional data. My presentation is only about the CBA on company level. The indicators are size of companies, ownership, regional distribution, etc. And we have created visual output in our web page, searching tool for using the by ID the existence of collective bargaining agreement. And this is on this picture how it's look like. Number of collective bargaining agreement in this one, and after that all so-called functional indicators. Unfortunately, is now is only this part in Bulgaria because we use the information from the information system, but maybe next year we change and can provide the English version of this part, the right side. And this is the collective labor agreement information about foreign company in Bulgaria, this and ID code, and the date is today. We have this information about the collective labor agreement. Please, next slide. And this is the agreement in two versions, in bilingual, Bulgarian and English. But all collective labor agreement on company level are not for general public. Despite that, in the labor code, we have some provision, obligation for employer to share the text of collective bargaining agreement, but for their own employees and new workers, etc. And also the employer is obliged to share the high-level collective bargaining agreement on branch industry level. So my first point is, during this project, I guess we can provide the text of collective bargaining agreement on enterprise level. This is not allowed in Bulgaria because some sensitive information included in CBA is not for general public. And the second stage is about the agreed clauses in CBA. The data, what the signatures have agreed upon, and we put in our information system through special questionnaire. And third step is that the information will be transferred in IBM SPSS for procedure of analyzing and some structure and analysis reports, etc. And we have in our web page a special part, and this is the link for seven chapters, let's say, and the wages are included in it. So please, second slide. This is the screenshot, how it looks like. This is both English and Bulgarian. We have 17 indicators and collectively agreed minimum wage for undertaking above the minimum national wage. Because in Bulgaria we have statutory defined minimum wage, and through the collective bargaining agreement on enterprise level, the parties agreed upon high level of minimum wage. And you can see for 4 years the trend in this graph that almost 32% of collective bargaining agreements agreed to have in the enterprise, in company, the minimum wage above the national minimum wage. And for almost 68% of collective labor agreement, there is no any provision about minimum wage above the national, or the agreement is to keep the national level of minimum wage in the company. And this is for, how to say, seniority bonus. The 86% in 2020 year has provision above the minimum seniority bonus in the company. Please, next slide. And we develop such kind of output for external output for public, for all trade unions, researchers, employers, state administration, and this is designed and to us to answer to the question, if you know the ID of company, is there a collective bargaining agreement on a given date? And you can receive the information by sectors, by NACE code, by size of enterprises, and municipality, regional distribution. And this is for the first date we keep our the first, let's say, collective bargaining agreement received in NICA. Today we have 385 collective bargaining agreements, and the distribution between public sector and private sector is shown. Also inside the public sector, real sector and public administration, and national and foreign companies. We also have an obligation to provide public information, I mean the full text, only for collective bargaining agreement concluded on industry branch level, it means sectoral level, and municipality level. We have some problem about municipality level, but on this link we can see all collective bargaining agreement on sectoral level. Please, next slide.
It's your last one, eh, Vladimir?
Maybe not last, but okay. We develop also the external output to see to answer to the question what are all collective labor agreement in a given period of time. Please, next slide. Okay, this is to answer to the question about collective bargaining agreement in force. And if you put the date, you can use this criteria, and the final result is this. So today, in the manufacturing sector, the foreign companies, we have 47 collective bargaining agreement covered 23,026 employees. Next slide, please. And I think it will be the last. Okay. The further step to migrate this database from access to SQL, the platform, develop new indicators and assist General Labor Inspectorate for digitalizing the process of registering of CBA. And of course, thank you for this opportunity to exchange good practice with your institution and to see how they collect information from CBA. And I'm sure that we can learn each other and to do our job in a better way. Thank you.
Thanks a million. Really good. And questions now directly related to this presentation. Otherwise, we take the next step to Italy. Feel free to ask short questions because it can be more practical.
I have another short question. Thank you very much for the presentation. And I've used your website before, and I have to say I was so grateful that you translate everything to English as well. And now I saw that you also present the collective labor agreement in Bulgarian and in English. Are all the agreements translated?
No.
Or is this just for the presentation?
It's just for the presentation. There are few CBA bilingual. Of course, is for foreign companies.
Yeah. Otherwise, it would be
Thank
costly
you.
and not needed. Huh? And
Sorry?
other questions for Vladimir, or let me know. No? Okay.
And finally, I'd like to thank to my colleagues Maya and Cveti, who are main experts who work with this database, and I think they will help this project with any kind of information you need.
Perfect. Really nice, friendly. And then the floor is now for Italy. Sandro, do you have your own presentation, or you want Niels to present your slides? Let me know.
Please present it. Okay.
You can. Okay. Go ahead.
Buonasera a tutti. Good afternoon to everybody. And let's wait for the presentation.
Niels?
Here you are, next page. Well, CNEL is an institution where there is the official source of information about national collective bargaining in Italy, and for public institutions, courts, lawyers, social partners, and so on. Please, next slide.
You're okay?
Yes, yes, okay. And at our archive, everybody can download the authentic text of any collective agreement. The authentic text is the legal binding text, and the whole database can be accessed at our internet site at the page that you see on this slide. So if you go there, you find the whole database in Excel format, and you have the link to any collective, any text subscribed by social partners. Next page. Well, CNAL was chosen as the seat of this database for the reasons you can read here. We are an institution established by the Italian Constitution, and it is the institution where social partners are represented. And we can propose law drafts to the Parliament. And of course, CNAL is independent from the government. Next page. Well, what can you find in our database? You can find national agreements, both for public and private sectors. Then you can find second-level agreements only for public sectors. Then you can find agreements between government and social partners on regulating some economic and social issues. And then you can find agreement among social partners. So bipartite and tripartite agreements. Next page. Well, let's talk about metadata. What kind of metadata you can find on our database? First of all, the status of each agreement, whether it is still in force or not in force, because we track the whole history of collective bargaining since the 1940s on. So you can find many agreements that are not in force anymore, but are useful for workers who are about to retire, for instance. Then there is the title of the agreement, subscribers, social partners that subscribe to that agreement, sectors, collective bargaining sector. We have 15 macro sectors, for instance, chemistry or steel metalworking or public sector and so on, which are divided into 96 sectors. Then there are the dates: subscription started, the expiry date of any collective of any text of any agreement. Then the NACE classification of economic activities at the lowest levels, at the sixth level. And for each agreement, there is the number of employers who use that agreement and the number of workers who are covered by that agreement. And this is possible thanks to, because we have just linked our database with the database of INPS. INPS is the National Social Welfare Institution of Italy. We don't have a sample of national collective. We have all the national. We and INPS have all the whole population of national labor contracts in Italy. Next page. And now we speak about a very important improvement that was decided last year, but has come into force the day before yesterday, on December the 1st, 2021. This important improvement is the unique code of national collective labor agreements. This unique code was established last year by this law of the Italian Parliament, and this law states that all employers in Italy must use CNAL's code in all mandatory communication to the Ministry of Labour and to INPS. All the authorities in Italy who have, for some reason, archives about national collective agreements will use the same codes. So it will be much easier to link information. Next page. Well, IMS started to use our code today, our codes the day before yesterday, and now in December and January there is a transition period, of course, because employers are updating their softwares. And the Ministry of Labour will start very soon. We are in contact with them. It's a matter of weeks. Next page. And if you have any question, you can write at this internet, at this email, and of course also in your national language. We try, if you write in Arabic, we try to answer. Thank you very much. Grazie.
Thank you, Sandro. Other questions for the super database from Italy?
Yes, I would ask to the person of Italy if there is the wages are shown on the screen. Not only the agreements, but only are there also wages that can be seen, and are they changed during the year before the end of the agreement?
Thanks, Sandro.
Well, for an agreement, you can see the text, the present text, the present agreement, and all the previous agreements. For instance, the agreement of commerce and service sector was first signed in 1951. Of course, the text from 1951 is not enforced anymore, but you can follow the whole history of that agreement.
And does the amounts of the wages change before the end of the agreement?
The amounts of what?
The amounts of the wages, do they change?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. In any text, you can find the wages that were foreseen for any level for workers and employees.
Yes, but I mean, before the end of the agreement, who is actually application of application, before the end of the agreement, is the wage, the amount of the wage will remain the same, or can it be changed before the end of the agreement?
Well, if you are interested in minimum wages, there is a page in our internet site where you can find the minimum wages of all the agreements in a sector, and it is a PDF file. You can, if you are interested in wages that are not minimum wages, you must look into the text of that agreement. With the unique code IMS, with IMS, we can from now on extract minimum and not minimum wages for all Italian workers.
Thank you.
If I may
Jana,
come in, because I think what you're asking here is a small misunderstanding, or we're talking about different things here. If I understand you correctly, so in Belgium, as I understand the system, there is fully automatic indexation, right? So if you have an agreement and then the next, that is for 3 years, but in the next year,
2 years,
the economy grows, inflation grows, then there will be an automatic indexation of all wages. So all wages go up. And so at that point, the wages in the agreement are no longer accurate. Is that correct?
Thank you very much. I didn't understand that our colleague was from Belgium. I know that they have this rule, but in Italy there is no indication, no binding indication for wage raises. Social partners, Italian social partners, never wanted laws that state
indication.
minimum wages. Yes,
Yeah.
we are one of yes. That's why. Sorry, I didn't understand that the question was from Belgium. Now it's clear. And yes, now the amount, the wage raise in each sector is decided by social partners in that sector when they renovate the agreement. And in each sector, there are many contracts. For instance, in the steel metalworking industry, now there are 31 national collective agreements. So it is a very decentralized system where the parliament and the government play no roles. There are some proposals, and there have been some proposals about minimum wage set by law, but till now, no draft law was passed, simply because there was the danger that minimum wage or an agreed wage raise decided centrally could be lower than minimum wage or wage raises decided in each sector by social partners.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Sandro. Are there other questions for Italy? According to me, it's more practical to have the questions directly related to the country and the country database, isn't it? Is there another question for Italy? Otherwise, we move on to the Netherlands. No? So Paul, you have the feeling that maybe you're the best, but now you see other examples and you say, my God, maybe we are not the best, isn't it, in Austria?
Yeah, of course.
It's challenging to hear the other ones who are very good. And thanks a lot. So can I invite now the two Dutch ladies? I'm not sure who will do the presentation. And you can do your own slides, or you can ask Niels to present the slides. Let me know.
Okay, I can share my screen.
Okay, fine.
I'm starting with it now. Okay, I cannot share my screen.
Oops.
So if you will do it for me,
yeah.
I will be very glad.
Niels.
Yeah, thank you.
Good.
Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon to you all. I'm very pleased to meet you in this webinar. And I will tell you something about what I will call the Dutch way. My name is Annemarie Houtkoop, and Martin Schaaps is also in this meeting. He is my colleague, and I work in a section of the Department of Social Affairs and Employability. And it's a section where CBAs are registered. There are three subsections in this section, and I will tell you something about our main work, but it's not a complete. It's not complete, but it's to give you an idea. The first one is where the CBAs are registered. That's not a paper matter, it's all digital. Then there is the next one, COB. It's the section where research is done. I work with 8 colleagues, and we use the CBAs for our research. And then the last one is the section where who takes care of the legal extension. Next slide, please. This is a figure with the amounts of employees in Holland who have a CBA. In total, we have 685 CBAs, and they're registered for 5.7 million employees. For 3.4 million people, there is a legal extension of the CLA. And for our research, we use 98 of the biggest ones. And that's for about 4.9 million employees, which is about 85%. Next slide, please. The way the CBAs are registered gives us the opportunity to have an up-to-date list of the CBAs. We use the list to keep our monitors up to date. We can use the registration system to search for new contracts or contracts of certain industries or with a certain amount of employees. And the possibilities to search for us are more extensive than for those who consult the website. There are possibilities for you to search on the website, but it's all in Dutch, so you have to use a translator. And next slide, please. Yeah, the subjects of our research are, for instance, wages. There's a lot of information about wages known. And my colleague Martin Schaaps is our expert. And every 3 months, we publish the change in wages for our 98 biggest. And there's a system we call CASIS, and that's where the wage changes are put in. So you have a day-to-day actual, it's actual. There is also an annual report of our most important research subjects. And from time to time, we write reports about other important matters for which we use the CBAs. At this moment, COVID is a subject and early retirement, for instance. And next slide, please. Well, it's the contact information. If you want anything to know about the wages, just ask Martin or mail to me or one of my colleagues. And that's why I give you our email addresses. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Annemarie. Nice presentation. Is there any question for the Dutch?
I've got a question.
Okay.
So I'm Daniela Secon from Wage Indicator. So you say you write reports on different or new topics related to collective agreements. How do you deal with the data in that case? So do you annotate the older collective agreements again on the new topic, or?
We use, I don't know if you know it, MaxQDA to analyze the CBAs. So we put them in a database. And then we annotate it, but it's all you can use some search words.
Okay.
But it's a lot of work. We do it manual.
Yeah, I know. You do it manual.
Okay. Yeah, for the 98 biggest, not for all the 650.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Nice question. More questions for the Dutch? No specialized questions on wages for Martin Schaaps?
Yeah, I have a question actually. And it's exactly about wages. Yeah. So I'm obviously very interested in that part of your presentation here. And you say that you update these wages every 3 months in terms of information of what the agreed pay rates are. And I was just wondering, because we've heard the earlier presentation, I think from Nika, it was, from ÖGB, who were saying that in their wages, they also calculate different elements like holiday pay and allowances and premiums. And I was wondering what is included in these wage updates.
What we use are the initial rates, which partners agree on in CBA. If there is a change in end year payment or in a vacation payment, that will also be used to calculate the contractloonmutatie, the wage raise. And that are figures we bring in figure for 3 sectors: the market, the public sector, and the care sector. And that's a figure which you can find on our website. Also, all the CBAs are standing on our website for the last 7 years.
Thank you. Jana? Okay.
Yeah, I have one more small question because I happen to know that you also report to the Dutch Parliament, like which CBAs are in force with a number of other metadata characteristics, like which companies do they cover or which sectors. And when you report there, each collective agreement has a number, like an identifying number. And I was wondering if that is a stable or a persistent identifier. So if let's say the IKEA CBA has number 1 this year, and in 2 years there's a new IKEA CBA, will it have the same number or a different number?
Will stay the same.
Okay.
Yeah, it's also it's not only used for registration of CBAs, but also other departments of the government use that number.
Thank you.
Lovely, freaky questions, eh? It's only nice questions for people who are really in the same field.
Yes.
Great. Then more questions for the Dutch, otherwise we go to the Swedes. No? Okay. Then Anna, where are you?
I'm here.
Yes, and Anna, can you present yourself, or you would like to ask Niels to do your presentation?
I'll give it a try with a button, but
maybe not. Otherwise, Niels, come with the presentation from the Swedes. Voila, it's already.
Can you
there.
see it? It worked.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Anna Fransson, and I work at the Swedish National Mediation Office. I'm going to use my 5 minutes to tell you a little bit about us and about our registry of CBAs. We are a central government agency under the Ministry of Employment. And we have 3 main tasks. The first is to mediate in labor disputes.
Anna, if I just can interrupt for one moment, because we're not seeing the full screen. We're seeing the PowerPoint base that doesn't move. So we don't see the next slide.
Oh, it looks so. Should I try again?
Yeah, otherwise rely on us.
Yeah, I'll give it one more try.
Try, exactly. Yep. It is the right button.
Does anything happen?
Nothing happens.
No. Then I would like to have help.
Niels, can you share?
Yes.
Looks
it's
great.
It's good that we are together, eh?
Yeah, perfect.
Go ahead.
Can I have the next slide? Thank you. We are a government agency under the Ministry of Employment, and we have 3 main tasks: to mediate in labor disputes and to promote an efficient wage formation process. And we also provide public statistics on wages and salaries in cooperation with employers' organizations and Statistics Sweden. We were established in 2000, and the agency has a staff of 10 or so in total, and 3 of us are specialized in collective agreements and mediation. The agency appoints mediators if there is a risk of industrial action or if the labor market organizations request it. And the mediators themselves, they are independent from the agency when they mediate, but they work on behalf of the agency, but are not employees. Typically, they are retired from leading positions in labor market organizations. And next slide, please. Now I'm going to go on to talk a little bit about our work to keep track of the collective agreements. We don't have any duty or assignment to have a registry or database. So the registry is on our own initiative. And it's for internal use mainly. But to fulfill our assignment with the mediation primarily, we need to have knowledge of the collective agreements, and we need to know of the terms of the agreements. Are there any early termination options, for example? And we also need knowledge of which of the agreements that may be subject to our mediation, or if the labor market organizations have solved it on their own. And prior to negotiations, we also collect information on possible issues of conflict. And in addition to this, we analyze how the wage agreements are constructed, which level are wages set, for example, and we give examples of minimum wages in the agreements in our yearly reports, for example. And I can have the next slide, please. The registry is metadata. It includes metadata for all of the approximately 700 current CBAs in Sweden that sets wages. And we publish information on the signatories, their names, and the name of the collective agreements and the expiry date. And also if during the pandemic, if the CBA has been prolonged. And we also have a separate data set with data for collective agreements that expires the current year, and they are sorted by expiration months. So the purpose is to have updated information on if there are any possible mediations incoming to us. And in addition to the information above, we also have information if the social partners have their own mediators, or if they will come to us if they need mediation. We have information if there was mediation the last time the collective agreement was negotiated, which is a fairly strong predictor. And we also have employer group if the employers organization belongs to a federation organization. And then we also have information if the collective agreement can be ended prematurely. And we publish these two data sets on our webpage. And next slide, please. Why is there only metadata in our registry? And the simple answer is that it's the social partners that are responsible for wage formation in Sweden. In a mediation situation, it's the disputing parties that explains their views on the issues of the conflict to the mediators. They also explain how they read their current agreement. So it's kind of part of the Swedish labor market tradition that the government has to be very cautious when it comes to commenting or make interpretations of the collective agreements. It would at best be seen as inappropriate, and at worst that's as interference in the wage formation. And another reason is that we have a very large spread in the possibilities to structure and analyze the CBAs. They look very different. And manual selection and ad hoc assessments are always needed when we analyze the collective agreements. And so we think there's limited gain for us to include this kind of information in our registry. And for analysis purposes, we often think that actual paid wages tells us more. That's all from Sweden. Thank you.
Thanks a lot,
Thanks.
Anna. Really good. Very interesting to see that whole diverse pattern throughout Europe. First questions to Sweden, and then we make it a bit broader. Special questions on how they do it. I think it was top secret what you explained, Anna. Who would like to ask more about Sweden? No? No? All clear?
Perfect.
Good. And very interesting. Then what I would, so for now, we are a bit over time, but that's no problem because we're in a very small group. Now what we can do together is still discuss a bit more about what are the uniqueness and how can we learn from each other, or not. I would ask, first of all, Jana and Jakub to take the floor and see what we can learn from this group. So go ahead, Jakub and Jana first. And otherwise I do have questions, but Jana.
Yeah, okay. Thanks a lot, everyone, for these presentations. It's really nice to see how you work, and it strikes me that some of you have, as organizations, very similar mandates.
Yeah.
In terms of, for example, some of you really geared much more towards producing statistical data and trying to explain or keep a record of what's going on, whereas others are much more targeted towards also providing legal advice. And so I'm really interested in seeing whether that might also explain a little bit differences in how you work, and whether in the countries where you yourself do not immediately have a mandate to provide legal advice, whether you, for example, how you work with, for example, the labor inspectorate, and whether they ever make use of your CBA data collections in this sense. I'm also very interested by something that Anna said, and I happen to have spoken to Anna yesterday in a bit more detail about their database as well. And I know that she explained to me that they have very different wage structures or pay rate structures in the different agreements. So you might have agreements with very detailed, like 16, 30 different pay rates, and agreements that only have 1 or 2 pay rates. And so I'm very interested to hear from your experience how uniform the wage structures in collective agreements are. So obviously the wage rates themselves, they change between sectors, but is the structure of the pay scales across different industries or different bargaining levels, is that comparable or more or less the same?
So Jana, these are a hell of a lot of different questions. Question to you. You want to know that in order in the end to have a better project on wage indicator Eurofound side, huh? It's not
Absolutely.
just for,
Yes.
It's not just for curiosity, it's because you want to know more. And let's first focus on the role of the labor relation with the labor inspector, right? Is there any of you who would like to reflect on that? No? No?
I can say something short.
Yeah, go ahead.
That even though we are a government agency, we doesn't have any connections to the labor inspectorate in that sense, because they would have direct contact with the labor market organizations, the market parties.
Yeah, so there's a reason for that. Is it in other countries different for a reason? No, no. Vladimir.
I made some comment about the labor inspection. I received a questionnaire by Eurofound, and in this questionnaire there's some question about what the registry entity do and what this entity control. Please take into account that NICA is the secondary register of CBA, but we know what the General Labor Inspectorate do in this sphere. They only registered collective bargaining agreement. There are no function to control what is in the CBA or to make some statement, this is unlawful, this is not right, and practically, if you can register only a sheet of paper, name it collective bargaining agreement, they won't be in a position to refuse this. Whatever in the collective bargaining agreement is write down.
Thank you. Others? No? Jana, happy with this one? Then we go to your second, let's say, reflection and question. Yeah? And then, Jana, then you should repeat it. That's the most practical, because then we have the whole group keen again.
Yeah, sorry, I admittedly was thinking what was my second point again? But,
I know,
yeah,
that
the wage
was
structures, I
related to
remember.
comparison. Yeah.
So to what extent, if you look in your experience, if you look at the pay scales in the collective agreements, do they all look more or less the same, or are they really different if you look in a different industry, or for example, the company collective agreement versus a sector collective agreement?
Well, if I may answer,
Martin.
in Holland, we are looking at approximately 100 CBAs for the wages, but there are CBAs with one, how do you call it?
Pay rate?
Één loongroep, one
One pay
group,
scale?
a pay scale, one pay scale. There are CBAs with 16 pay scales. So that's very different, and it is also not uniform within a sector or so. That's all. Agreement on a CBA is the responsibility of employers and unions, and nobody else has to do with that process. So they can put in a CBA whatever they want. The only thing the Ministry of Social Affairs is doing is registration and legal extension if asked for in an industry.
Which means that it is close to impossible to compare it. That's your question, Jana. How do you start comparing it?
What we do is looking at the lowest pay rate in all the CBAs, and if there's only 1 or 16, that doesn't matter for our comparison.
Okay, that is good. These were 2 questions from Jana. Are there more among you? Well, are you surprised about what others are doing in the same topic? Is it enjoyable to hear what colleagues from other European countries are doing? First time in your life, maybe, that you talk to somebody who's doing something similar? How does it feel?
I think what Austria is doing is a little bit similar, collecting similar information as we do. As we looked at the metadata and wages.
And Martin, aren't you surprised about what CNEL is doing in Italy then?
We with the text of the agreements, and we take out the minimum wages, so everybody can with the minimum wages in each collective agreement within each sector. For instance, if you work in the steel metalworking industry, you can read a list of 51 contracts, and you can read the minimum wage. And we have, when we speak about wages, we have more or less the same issue that our Dutch colleague spoke about. So there are many pay scales. And so if we want to build a European database, we must choose what wage to put in. I mean, we should decide, should we decide the minimum wage, or, for instance, the wage amount, the entire wage paid by by an industry, that is the multiplication between the number of workers that are under an agreement multiplied by their wage. And we must decide. It is not, my opinion, possible to give. We need. Let me speak easier. We need to agree what we mean by wage in our common database. We must choose an indicator. The first proposal could be minimum wage. So give for each contract the minimum wage. And another proposal is the amount of wages. For instance, in a contract, people or workers under a contract receive, I don't know, 7 million euros of wages a month totally. So.
Thank you. And I see many of you, all of us, are very keen. This is a cool topic. But first, Jana and Jakub.
Maybe I can react.
I saw Jakub.
Yeah.
Please react.
Yeah, just very shortly that regarding these aims, we have a discussion ongoing with Jana and the team on how exactly do we like. Thank you for all the interesting presentations, and how do we merge this together into something that is comparable? So we are exactly looking to gather data that is calculated into an hourly or monthly wage. We take into account the 13th payment, bonuses, etc. So this can be all taken into account. But the whole trouble of this project or the approach is, do we take the sectoral approach? Do we take just a very specific job? And do we look for specific low-paid jobs within these agreements that we then compare? I think these are still very open questions, and it will also depend. And that's why we are looking for what data is out there and what we could use. And secondly, if we can apply it to all the countries. So these are the issues we are facing. And I mean, it'll be interesting, and we'll be looking forward to cooperate with you on this. So there is a long
So
time.
what shall we do? Because we talked now for 1.5 hours, which was fine and really vivid. Do we sort out this topic now within this group for another 10-15 minutes? We can try. Or Jana, do you say, well, we know for now enough, and we talk step by step with each of them? This is more a question on process. We can keep on discussing it now, or we say, no, this should be more bilateral, more precise. Jana.
I think we are not deciding this issue today, because it's a very complicated issue. So I wouldn't push to try and decide on it in the next 15 minutes. But if people would like to react to that, I also would be very happy to hear that. So I would say, if the discussion isn't over, people who have another 10 minutes, I would love to hear your opinion.
Perfect, Jana, because Sandro started. So who from you would say, well, I have an idea about this? Take the floor. Paul? Anna?
And if not, I do have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because you all spoke about the lowest wage in the agreements, identifying the minimum wage. Does anybody use any statistics or ever use the highest wage that you find in the agreements? Or is that of no substantive interest to you?
Nice question.
Well, we have, we collect the lowest wage in a CBA, but we also have looked at the highest wage. So we can see the difference between those two. But that's not a research which is performed annually. What we annually collect are the lowest wages in a CBA.
Thank you. Any reaction from Paul?
I mean, we annotate all the wages, but as we're the trade union, we're not really interested in the highest ones. So, I mean, we could do it, but there's no need for it.
Yeah. And any order? Or should we sort out, let's say, the hot topic, where to find it, whether in the sector, in the occupation group, or at the minimum? Should we keep on having this discussion within this group a bit longer and also bilateral? Then, because of course you can't take decisions on this type of complex topics in such a group. And so if no one else has a reaction now, then I do have another proposal, and that is, if some of you or other pairs say, well, I would like to know more about what Canal is doing in Italy, or what Vladimir is doing in Bulgaria, or what Paul is doing in Austria, or what the Dutch are doing, then we can organize for you just a small breakout room. You can talk together, the two of you, and we don't follow you, so you can do in the talking whatever you want. So that's an offer from our side to make sure that you also benefit each other from such a meeting, because you can learn from each other a hell of a lot, because you're exactly in the same field. That's an option. If so, tell us. And otherwise, we close the meeting for today. And as you know, we come back together next year again. And in the meantime, on the email a lot. Let me know what you think is a good plan. Sandro.
Well, I propose to update our meeting mainly because we have a big issue. We must agree on how to measure wages. And this is a challenge. So we need to think about it.
Mm-hmm. And does it mean that you want to have a decision today, or you can wait for a while?
I think that on this topic, Euro Foundation is very important because I learned about this collective bargaining systems in other European countries thanks to Euro Foundation publications. So when we decide what we mean by wage in our future common database, we must take into account the national rules. We must avoid we must avoid misunderstandings. We must show that we are measuring the same thing.
Perfect. Really good.
So I rely on the colleagues of Eurofund.
Sure. So me and Diana will be in touch once we have a more concrete proposal and more specific ideas to discuss. So for everyone who has participated in this meeting, we would circulate some of our thoughts, ideas, and ask for your feedback. I think that would be a good plan. Also, with regards to Eurofund's project, at the moment it's we're still deciding, and it's an exploratory study. So this is not the goal is not to have a database that will be shared with everyone or will be up for the commission. This is more of a research exploratory study. Of course, we would like to have the indicators, but to some extent, it's we are trying to try whether this is feasible at all, to build a database, if the systems are comparable, if the wages are comparable. Exactly, and there are several issues we need to solve. So we would welcome any feedback that you might have. I don't know if Jana wants to add anything.
No, which means such a meeting as this has value because we all have a say, and that's the good part of it. So whether it's Sandro or Anna or Vladimir or Martin or Paul, you're there, you're close to making decisions on this as well by having the best arguments for this or that part. So that is, I would say, thanks to this project as well, that this is possible, this debate. Really good.
So we would come back with some proposals and then ask for
Perfect.
feedback. I think that's the best way
Yeah.
to go for this.
Yeah. And so then I would suggest we close this meeting now by thanking the technical staff, at least, by thanking Jakub, Eurofound, and Jana for being the boss of the project, all wage indicator people, but of course, everybody who did the special presentations, and our public who was there as well to listen in what we're doing. I think it's quite, it's a bit freaky. That is, I think everybody will think about that as well. So highly unique discussion, but it's lovely to have people together who are all in the same field. Where do you find that? Well, it's almost like a marriage. Thank you for now for this Friday afternoon being together. We will share the video, the presentations, unless you don't want it. Otherwise, we share them together. And we see you soon again in the webinar. And next to that, on the email with ideas about how to decide.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
you,
you,
everyone. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Arrivederci.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Niels, can you stay? Yeah.
And Akash, I think you can stop the recording, no?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Right.